All right, welcome back to the stream. This is part 2 of our effort to Zitify the OpenShift installer. So the OpenShift installer is a Go CLI that is able to configure an OpenShift cluster. We're using the version that works with AWS for this example. Our goal is to make an always private OpenShift cluster. So OpenShift is Red Hat Kubernetes, and there are some significant benefits to having an API server for the cluster that never even is exposed to the internet from the very beginning. So in order for that bootstrapping to occur from my computer rather than from a bootstrapping instance inside the private cloud, I would need to have some kind of remote access. So we're solving that reachability problem. Uh, this is framed by a little bit of background. We have already Zitified the Kubernetes CLI, kubectl, for similar reasons so that it can interact with existing private clusters via Ziti. And we did the same thing for OC, which is the OpenShift CLI, which is a fork of the Kubernetes CLI and adds OpenShift specific functionality to that. So we already have an OpenShift CLI that can interact with the private cluster, but we don't have a way to bootstrap it from our own workstation. So that's where we're at today. Clint, maybe you can give us a little bit of background on how far we got in part 1.
And part 1 was a week ago. I don't really remember how far we got. I know that I had downloaded OpenShift installer or cloned it. I had gotten it to build using WSL. Since I run Windows, I use WSL for my bash prompt. By the way, can you see me? I only see a blank screen here.
Actually, your video seems to have frozen.
Oh, fantastic. Let's disable the camera, enable the camera.
Oh,
Okay.
we lost your video.
This is perfect.
I can still hear you though.
All right. Well, I feel the need to look at myself here. Why is it? It says it's unplugged. That's pretty fantastic. What's going? All right, whatever. I'll work on
There's
that
a
in a bit.
problem.
I guess so. It's clearly plugged in.
All right, I'll see
So
what I can
anyway,
remember from the installer. Oh,
I was gonna say
you got it.
I'll keep
Yeah.
going. I
Okay.
can unplug it and keep going.
Sure, sure.
So OpenShift installer was cloned, and then after that, I built everything in Linux. It required me to run make because there was some. Was it C? Was there some C go in there that I needed? I don't remember what it was. But I needed to run it in make. I could not debug it using my local. Oh, that's what it was. Since I run Windows, there is a section of the OpenShift installer that expects you to be running inside of Linux, and so the Go code simply doesn't compile
Mm,
in Windows. So I'm trying
okay.
to run it through WSL2, and that didn't work out so hot. I was able to actually compile it using their. They have a hack.sh. That's what it was. So I ran that hack.sh. I was able to build the project, but I was not able to be successful because I had no OpenShift cluster to access. We tried to run OpenShift create, I think,
Yep.
and that
Run
timed
the
out.
installer on a.
Yeah, it took us way
Oh,
too
that's right.
long. It took a long,
But
long
we have one
time.
now, right?
Yeah.
I
So
gave you access
after
to the new one.
that's right. Yep. So the plan that we had formulated was you were going to whip up a cluster, which you've done, and then today we were going to use OpenShift install to like add a node or remove a node or something that required the Kubernetes API because we
Right.
got hung up on Terraform stuff, not so much OpenShift install stuff.
Yeah, that seemed like a transient failure because we attempted the same thing again off camera, and it worked the second time. So, I'm just chalking this one up to occasional availability problems or inconsistencies, just working with complex remote resources.
Yeah.
All right. So, do you have a kube config for the new OpenShift cluster?
All right, here we go.
There you
So,
go. Video's back.
strangely enough, I had selected Restream to allow my camera since we're doing this from Restream.
Hmm.
And when I selected Allow Forever, it blocked me forever. So I've now fixed it somehow.
Hmm.
Fantastic. What was your question, Ken?
I was just making sure you had a kube config for the OpenShift cluster. So we're starting with a public
I do.
cluster, which
I
is the
do.
default. In the install config for OpenShift, it's called publish external. So that's the default, and we're doing that to prove that we're not that we haven't broken the OpenShift installer. And then after we have finished the zetification or exercised it with the public cluster, then we will be able to do the the ideal solution, which is starting with a private cluster.
Yeah, basically, I need to be able to find the area of code where the OpenShift installer tries to connect to the Kubernetes API. Because with our software, with Ziti, we need to be responsible for the actual connection between, well, say, your program and the remote location. And that's
Right.
how you're able to get onto the overlay network, and that's how you're able to send traffic, etc. So, what I was trying to do last week is find that spot, and it was cumbersome because we weren't able to get to a place where OpenShift installer would try to access that Kubernetes API. Now that we have a config, as you can see here, I've actually used the OC installer kubeconfig. I set my kubeconfig variable. I ran kubectl get pods, and I have some pods. So, did you install two hosts in here, by the way? I see two ZD
I
hosts.
did when I was trying to figure out the problem with the colliding secret on the Helm
Yeah,
chart. I
cool.
installed two to make sure it was working.
Okay. So we see that we have
So
a couple of ZD pods already deployed, ZD hosts, however you want to call it. Each of them will be just fine. But we don't really need any of this just yet because we still want to. Oh, in fact, if I do the minus V6, that's more information than I expected to see back. But you can see what our API URL is right there. So I need to go find wherever in OpenShift install this REST request is created. And so now what I'm going to do is let's see, I think I tried building this before. So this is a complex little environment here. I've got I've got Ubuntu WSL2 in this window. I don't know if I can. I don't have my. Oh, now everything's gone.
oh,
Come
Clint,
on.
just to divide and conquer, I think I thought of a couple good things that I can do here. One would be to go and make sure that our ZD network is set up to host the API server and get you an endpoint so that you'll be
Hmm.
able to use it with the installer.
Yep.
And the second would be, if you haven't already, to go and look at the installer docs to see what kinds of operations we might be able to do after the cluster has been created to prove that it's actually talking to the API server.
Well, that is 100% what I need to figure out, and have
Okay.
no clue where or how to do that. I have not read those docs.
I'll
That
go
was
look right
why.
now. Yeah.
Yeah, that was why we were going to add a node to the cluster because that
Right.
would.
Which is just a guess at something that it might be able to do after the cluster is created.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I'll go find
So
out.
so I was going to go and find the OpenShift installer binary that we created last week, run it, and see what it says. So that seems like we're going to do the same sort of thing, which is fine.
Cool.
This is OpenShift.
If that's the next thing, then don't hesitate because I can just work on getting you an endpoint.
Oh yeah, go ahead and do that. That we'll need that anyway.
I've shared Clint Win with you via email
Okay.
as an identity that you can enroll and use with the installer. I'll go make sure it's got all the right permissions.
am going to use Ziti tunnel.
The domain name for the service is kubernetes.default.svc. I'll put that in the chat on 443 when you go to compose your server URL.
Oh, you'll forgive me, Ken. I wasn't paying attention right there.
No problem at all. I'm just going to put it in the chat. I'll put it in the public chat too so people can see what I'm talking about.
Ziti tunnel, enroll. Okay, so now I've got my identity enrolled. Okie doke. When I ran the OpenShift install command, it's got a bunch of analyze, completion, create, destroy, explain, gather, graph, migrate version. Nothing in there like strikes me as accessing the Kubernetes API. I mean, create seems like it would, but I don't know enough about this tool to know what it's going to do. Maybe we'll run analyze and see what happens.
Yeah, just keep working on that,
Bootstrap,
and I'll
gather
focus on
particles.
making sure the service is available to you, and then I'll divert back to see if I can figure that out with you.
Error executing OpenShift install. You must specify the type of resource to explain. Type of resource. Let's say nodes. Only install config resources supported.
I guess I wouldn't be shocked if the installer only installs, but
I
if
mean,
that's the case, then we have to figure out
I
another way to
wouldn't,
test it.
I wouldn't be either. But if that were the case, then does it actually interact with the Kubernetes API at all? Like,
It does near the end of its process. We know that it does because it needs to call the API server to register the OpenShift cluster with the OpenShift Cloud Console. So it has to install the pull secret in the cluster so that the cluster will be able to pull container images from the OpenShift private repos.
so if I get the secrets, you would think that one of these was created by OpenShift install?
By the installer.
Like
Yeah, I think
I
there
know
must
3 days
be
and
a
22 hours ago, it's about when you made the cluster. So
give it a TAC capital A. I mean hyphen capital A for
I
all
actually know what TAC
namespaces.
means now.
Because we had that conversation, yeah. So somewhere in there is probably a pull secret, which we don't want to expose because I don't know how to rotate it, but it is unique to our cloud console.
OpenShift config pull secret.
And the way this appears to work is if you wanted to transfer ownership of your OpenShift cluster, you would initiate that in your cloud console, and apparently the cluster reaches out and downloads its instructions from the cloud control plane, and then transfers itself, re-registers itself with the new pull secret. So I think the cloud control plane, that is Red Hat OpenShift, is poll only rather than reaching. I don't think it reaches back to the cluster because it works with private clusters too. I guess there are other ways it could be push.
Yeah, I remember last time around I had tried finding all of the net connections. Apparently there are none. Sure, I'd found one. It added Ziti somewhere. Yeah, config. Yeah. That's right. It was I was looking for dials, not connections. I was looking for every place it was dialed. And then I added some comments like this just to see if it would show up.
You're good to go on the Ziti service side. So you have my full attention for this question about what we can do with the OpenShift installer.
Well, that's 1 second. Let's see if I can do a ZD tunnel. I mount vtemp install proxy. I made a lot of services. Kate's API server, test server,
Yeah.
Echo. You made all those?
Yeah. Well, I just added the Ziti service into one of the test networks that I
So
create routinely.
is it Kate's API server?
Yep.
Is that the name of the
That's the name
service?
of the service. Yep.
Bind permission denied. Well, that's new.
1, 2, 3, 4 shouldn't require elevated privileges.
No, it should not. Perl to local -k to HTTPS localhost :2345.
You could just try adding a 5 in front of that.
I just changed the port. Fine.
Okay.
Yep, cool. So confirm that this guy can get through. We can see our.
I thought it was only
Actually,
1024 and lower that were required privilege to
it
bind.
is, but I ran it twice, so who knows if the port is still open. Let's not focus on that.
Okay.
I mean, there's a whole bunch of reasons why that port could be reused or whatever. Like,
Sure.
I'm pretty lazy, so I use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 a lot. Who knows if I've used it already? Put up my solar shade. Okay.
There you go.
So let's see. I was trying to figure out what commands that OpenShift install might use the API for. So if you can go and scarf through doc, I will go and look through code here and see if anything seems reasonable after it's already done its install. Like, can I pull the configuration from the running cluster? Like right now, if I were to, no, this is in the wrong folder. If I were to try this, last time we tried this, it makes a bunch of files locally when you run the config, right? Remember that?
Yeah.
And then that's basically a declarative plan for the cluster. Is that true? Kind of like Terraformish?
It does create a Terraform state, so it must have a Terraform plan. It's not clear if it's completely tied off, or that is if it's still valid after installation has completed.
Yeah, that's the question. I mean, I am kind of expecting that this is similar to Terraform, where you can just, or Docker Compose or whatever, where you can just,
Yeah.
make a change and then reapply it.
I still have that directory. I
I
can
was going
send
to
you a
ask.
copy of
I was
it.
going to ask that question too. Yeah, why don't you do that? That'll be
Yeah.
just easier. But if I could generate it, if that was a command, then that might actually go out and talk to the API server. Was what I was thinking. There's a migrate command.
You should have a tarball in chat. 2.5
Yep.
megs. And when you unpack that, it'll create a directory with the same name as the tarball.
Let's just see about that.
Depending on how you go about it, but
Okay. And which one of these guys, the TF state, is that the one that's relevant?
you probably don't want to look at the tf state command. I'm looking now to see if there's any kind of plan. I'll actually post in chat the contents of the directory as a directory structure. That did not translate very well. Try that again. Post code in the chat here.
Oh, the restream chat. I was scarfing
This
all
doesn't
over.
work.
That is ugly. Yeah, I got all these files. Okay, so
There's no Terraform plan in there, so I think it must have been generated as a temporary files by the Go CLI.
why does it keep open that window? Stop that.
I do believe there's a way to there may be a way to pause, like during the installation. I know you can modify the configuration file. That's how I typically do it. I create the install config, modify that, and then run the create command, which appears to translate into a Terraform apply, which is the effective run.
All right. Well, let's see. I think I don't know where to go. I need to try to find any place that we do a dial, which I've already done. I could try to delete it. That might work. Is there a way
Delete what?
to the cluster?
Well, that should just like that should be just a matter of calling the public cloud providers APIs to destroy all the resources. There is a destroy command in the installer, and that's what it does. I don't know I don't know why it would call the API server of the cluster if it's just going to tear everything down.
And I don't know if I follow you. Like I still don't know enough about this command at all to know what it does or how it does it.
And at
Um,
this point, you just want to test it, right? You've made a
well,
change and you want to see it work.
we've started this experiment with the supposition that OpenShift installer is actually trying to communicate to a Kubernetes cluster through the Kubernetes API, right? So we're trying to verify that that's actually true, and I don't know how to go about verifying it. Maybe I can find where the kube config or the where the cube, what do they call it, Kate's, wherever the API is actually used. Maybe that's what I should do. Is find where kates.io slash, what do we call this thing? To see wherever the actual library is consumed. You know what I mean? That's probably the best thing to do. So over
Let's
here,
look at the built-in help.
I started going down that route, but I didn't see anything that jumped out at me. I'm going to
Yeah,
go
I'm
to
going
the
to drill down into the different subcommands and see
I'm going to
what
go to
looks
the
interesting.
incubator. I'm going to look at I'm going to remind myself of the actual package that we used to pull in here. This is the main right here. CLI. I think that's the one I want. Oh, or maybe it's this client go. Yeah, well, create gather. Gather supposedly uses it.
I think I found one. Here we go. The wait command, wait for, just verifies that the cluster is available. So if we say wait for install complete, it
One word
should
or wait
succeed.
hyphen.
Wait hyphen for install hyphen complete. I got a success with my kube config configured for the same cluster. Yeah, it actually spits out the API server URL and the kube admin password. So it's definitely it's verifying that it's available. There you go. There's our litmus
Well, it's a
test.
good thing. It's a good thing you sent me the that full zip file, because apparently the auth/kube config is referenced somehow. See that right here? Failed loading kube config. Even
That's
though I
just the default path. I
not,
think if you set
yeah,
your kube
I
config,
tr-
oh
no, no,
wait, you did. You did
see I
export
did
it.
that, but I don't care because I will just cd to the right location and run
Why didn't it you honor your kube config? Maybe
alias
the installer.
ocn equals.
If you use the default path that's apparently hard coded into the installer, then it should work. And I'm guessing that even if we modify that kube config for the zetification, that it'll still work.
Okay, so ocn. There it goes. Failed to watch. Now this is really intriguing. How has this pulled kubernetes.default.service? Did you change this config to use
Oh,
Ziti
yes,
already?
I did. Yes, I did. That's right. I sent you the modified kube config. That's what
So
happened.
fancy, Ken. All right.
I
Well,
well, it
we
was
have
unintentional.
proven,
But
and well, no, it was perfect because it worked. Which is interesting too, because I think you sent me, what was the one that you sent me? Kubernetes.default.service. Is that what it's trying to find? Kubernetes.default.service. So why did you port map 4443 to 6443 and all that?
it
So this
wasn't
works.
necessary because internally the cluster services load balancer inside the cluster is 443. And so the terminus is pointed at that.
Okay. So you can confirm you can get to here? Oh, no. I know why. It's because I'm not running ZD Tunneler. That's why. All right. So, okay, let me think about this for a few shakes. So now I've got proof that that works. I know that this is trying to do a get. So I'll find cluster version in here. Where is this word used? It's under create. Why is it under create? That's a strange place for it to be. Waiting for up to. Let's see what that's. Waiting for up to. The cluster at. Okay. Okay. Here we are. New for config. Waiting for this up to. Do. Client till sync. New list watch from client. So hopefully this gives us a REST client. What's a client set? Let's go to discovery client, config v1 client. Who knows what those are? New config. All right, new REST client for config transport. Here we go. Okay, we're getting down to pay dirt. This should be in the, yeah, this is in the case A. Okay, makes sense. Okay, REST client 4. This is in OpenShift. This is my config. Okay, so now I gotta remember how to do this. Oh, ooh, this is an OpenShift library. Config clients.go. Why is that vendored?
Does that mean it's coming in from another module?
That means it is a dependency. So I don't know if that's what you mean, but it means it's not part of this particular project, which would surprise me. So like if I come back to here, change up a folder, dot dash name for config client.go in the vendor folder, which means it's an external dependency, which is strange, but let's see if it passes the config. Okay, so it does pass the config in. Okay, good. Client set, does it also pass the config? It does pass the config. Okay, good. Here's my config. Okay, all right. So config dot style wrapped function. That's the one I need. Okay. Let me go remember how to make the wrapped function because I don't remember that. Wrap config function. Here's this. Boom. Style function. Boom. Okay. Service name. What was that service name again? Kate's API server. Just hard code it. My path is going to be slash. Right there's my path. All right, so now that's all happy. Config.wrap. Oh, it's in the config flags. Oh my god. Why won't they just take my pull request? Okay, so new for config. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this because this this config itself, I need to be able to specify the flags because this wrap function that I'm trying to set, I don't think I can set it. See if there's any. Yeah, I don't think that would work. The function. Okay, I suppose I can just steal all the code from here. Let me just copy this back here, paste this into here. We're going to call this a hacked new for config. So we take this out, cc error config. Okay, so now that all works. Client set. Where were we before? Call this 1.1. This is inside versioned. Why is it in package versioned? That's weird. Huh. I just want to vendored. Or versioned. Huh. Okay, maybe I got the wrong. No one config client is versioned the thing. Nope. This is the one I copied, right? Yeah. Okay. So, where? Here it is. This is a. It says it's versioned. It's public. Why can't I access it? Versioned. GitHub. Can I copy that? Copy the package. Just let me do that. Copy. Okay. Suppose that's vendored to or versioned, whatever they call it. Yes, it is. I want to copy this. Oh, good, I can. Ugh. How about Control C? Will that work? Hey, it did. All right. Well, I thought I just imported you. Oh, right there already. GitHub OpenShift API config v1. GitHub OpenShift config. What? Come on. Come on, you can do it. Config v1b. Okay. What's your problem? You want to be a config v1. But how are they doing this? Hacking together the version stuff is not, it's not being so kind to me. I guess I'm
Not a
just,
good path.
I mean, I'm just trying to, bubblegum together here, but it's not working out. So now I'm going to try to go back and modify the actual versioned file itself. It tells me it's going to yell at me and say you shouldn't do this. I'm going to say I know. Let's want that rest config. Oh, what's wrap transport all about? Well, hold up. Let's put this back. Let's see.
That looks juicy.
Yep, that's got some legs, maybe. Let's see. Config.wrap transport. See if that's ever invoked. Future release will change this field to an array. Use config.wrap. I can't. I wonder if it's ever used anywhere. All right, it seems to be used. But it's just overriding it. Like, this is no good. I can't. I mean, if it's going to just override it, I can't do that. Well, this is a real pain. So basically what I need the change that we put up that I've tried to push through, but KubeCon happened last week and lost some momentum on it. That allows me to provide the wrapper function. I should probably just fork the entire Kubernetes API, and then I could just use our version of it. Or I suppose I could use Go modules to try to replace our version, but I'm not really set up to do all that because it's one of those things I don't do frequently. I wonder if I could do that. But they render all their stuff. It's checked in. Hmm. I'm running out of steam. Not sure where to go, what to do. really want to
All
just
right.
provide my own function here. I want that wrap function. I want to get into that. Let's see. Let's look at what this thing does.
Would it help to take a step back and recap where we're at? Talk through it.
I don't think it'll help. We are. I mean, like I don't feel like I haven't gotten or done anything of value this session, other than confirming that we have a function that we know OpenShift installer will actually use to access the Kubernetes API with. So that's cool. So
Yes.
we've confirmed that. That's
We know
positive.
how to test it. Yeah.
Now we know how to test it, which means we could probably find all of the areas that are currently using a REST client and set them up in the same way, because I'm sure to be other configs, other commands that do the same sort of thing.
Right.
One would hope that it's reused code. So if I fix it in one place, I fix it for all commands, but I don't know that's the case. In order to do this, we need to make the same sort of change that we did to kubectl, which is we need uh, the API to allow me to specify what what the flags are, because in those flags comes this wrapper function that's really what I need. And it's not this transport one; it's the actual one that does the dialing, which is actually right in here. I think this is the function. Is it this function? It's not. It's not this function, but it's nearby here, because I know it's nearby here because we have actually changed it, and it's in command.go. That's transport.go. So it's adjacent, but not it's not right here. So basically, I need these. I need to be able to set these CLI flags, because the CLI flags themselves. Let's see. Does this have CLI? Generic CLI options. Generic CLI options. This thing right here. Wrap. Oh, okay. Do, do, do. Hmm. Okay. Well, I'm not finding what I want to find here. It's going to be in the. That's in a whole different thing. I would have thought that I would have found this as one of the dependencies in this directory itself, but I don't see it in there, which is strange. Did not expect that. I thought I would find it. But basically, this little function right here is always overridden, and when it's being set and always overridden, that's when that's a problem. So passing in the config flags like this allows me
Ah,
to
yeah. It
to
doesn't give you
check.
a convenient place to hook in.
Right. Yeah. So this wrap config function I can't specify anywhere and anyhow,
Right.
because it is always created in this new default kubectl command. And I don't think they use new default kubectl command, but I do think they use new kube command.
So the installer is importing the kubectl module.
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, Kubernetes, the client was set up nicely because the kubectl CLI imports the Kate's IO package slash library. And that library provides these commands to create Cobra commands. To basically, it's like all of the underpinnings
Ah,
necessary for the CLI itself,
right.
which
Kate's
is,
uses Cobra, so it just
yeah,
generates the
yeah,
subcommands for the installer.
it's super handy. So they have, where was that cube command? I would have thought to find that too. inside of one of these vendor packages. I'm surprised I don't find it, which is in package command. Oh, it's because it's in. Okay, it's because it's in kubectl, not the actual It's in the CLI as opposed to the library. That's why. But that function is provided by the library, so I would have expected that to be here. View the whole file. I want to see like CLI runtime. This guy right here. Yeah, kubectl package command. I don't see command.go though. It's like almost like some of it's been removed, maybe. Like in ours, it's package command.go. I don't know why it's not
Yeah.
there. Anyway,
Maybe it functions differently as when it's not a normal module.
no, I don't know. I don't know what's going on, and maybe they get rid of some files. But I thought that's where it was.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've gotten a little bit further, I guess. We have discovered a place where a new client is created. This config client's new for config is an OpenShift client Go function. So this is probably the place where I'd want to change it. I wonder if client Go is a project out here, an OpenShift. Client Go. There's a client Go. So if all of these use client Go, then I could change client Go, replace
Yeah.
that dependency, and then I'd be able to new for config in the project. Okay, so samples. So where is this used? This is samples. I don't want to be in samples. Wow, it's a much bigger project than I expected. Interesting. I caught a Helm is in here. Didn't expect to see that. Is Helm developed by Red Hat?
I don't believe so.
Huh.
But but Red Hat does often contribute to the packages that they use.
Oh, yeah, let's see. What was I trying to do here? Let's see. Okay, so it looks like there may only be two places that actually create a Kubernetes API client, in this gather.go and this create.go, which makes sense. And we are sitting here in create.go, and wait for is a function inside of that. Okay, so let's see. I wanted to find every place new for config is created, because this thing actually not in project. Where's config? Client is in client go config client set versioned. Config client set versioned.
Helm is Linux Foundation.
Cool. what did I want? New for config. New for config. Okay, so all right. Okay, we've made some more progress here. This new for config will take a REST config in. This REST config itself does not have the wrap function. Where are the CLI options created? Generic CLI options. Calls new config around here. Nothing. Nothing in here calls new config or new for config. Well, why? Okay, GoLand. Why didn't you find any of these other functions? All right, let's go back to this one again. Because wait for initialized cluster passes in a REST config. Where is it used? Wait for install to complete passes in a REST config. Here's my config. Where is this config created? Build config from flags. Create client config. Where do they make these CLI options? So many options. Nowhere. Okay, didn't expect that. Didn't expect that, didn't expect that. Are they just copied? Is that why? Uh, they never ended up calling new. I wonder if they just copies all of this stuff. But they would need generic CLI options. I don't. Huh. And it's top of the hour. We've gotten some more information, but still not enough to figure this out.
All right.
Um,
Good enough for a sprint then?
sure. I mean, we learned something, which is there's a whole
For
client
sure.
Go imported library that may or may not be relevant. It looks like it's relevant because it
Yeah.
makes this config. But what I'm not
I'll s-
seeing is with our, why is that beeping at me? Stop beeping at me. With our kubectl client itself, we are creating these cube config flags. And when we create the cube config flags, we are able to specify the actual wrapper function itself, which must be up here.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So here I'm able to specify that wrap config function. And then that wrap config function gets invoked when the REST client has tried to be created by the API. So what I'm surprised at is I don't see where anything is using the kubectl command. Okay, but I suppose that could make sense because they're not going to be calling it kubectl command. It's going to be their own command. We're going to figure out what I would have expected somewhere along the lines that they would have made a generic CLI options config flags. These right here, because that is how you specify the flags that you want to the Kubernetes API, the K8s.io
Right.
API. I don't see that. I don't see that happening in here, which surprises me. Like I would have thought for sure I would have found those options getting created because that's where I would go to bake in that wrapper function.
Hmm.
So maybe that'll be next time.
All right. Well, good stuff, Clint. I'll drop the screen share. And to recap, we nudged it forward. We still need to. We're still trying to figure out how to hook in to the part of the installer that creates the connection to the API server. So that's just orienting to this project and the way that it builds the client or instantiates the client class to build that connection, hooking in at the right place is going to require
Yep.
some familiarity with that. So maybe before part three, we can just tinker a little bit in there and figure out exactly how to do that and then lay out the final step.
Maybe I'll go and talk to that OpenShift fella and see if he wants to join us.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah,
I'll
we'll
try
definitely
that.
invite
We'll
him.
see. We'll see how that goes.
All right, Clint, good
All
stuff.
right.
Thanks so much for driving today, and we'll see you all next time.
See you again.